Japan, Kyoto. A few years ago, my family went on a trip to Japan. We visited the big cities of Tokyo and Yokohama. We also visited a very old and charming city called Kyoto. In Japanese, Kyoto means capital city. In fact, Kyoto used to be the capital of Japan for hundreds of years before Tokyo took its place. Thankfully, Kyoto's historical treasures weren't destroyed in World War II like most were in Tokyo. Shinto and Buddhist shrines can be found throughout the city. They house thousands of priceless artifacts. Kyoto is beautiful. The city is full of charming neighborhoods and exceptional gardens. The homes that line Kyoto's winding streets are made of paper and wood. Most houses are small, with just one room covered with tatami. A tatami is a straw-woven floor mat. Beds are simple futons placed on the floor. Even though they are sparsely furnished, Kyoto's homes are very comfortable. They often open up to a private garden where you can visit and relax. The architecture and design of Kyoto's older buildings are amazing. The old imperial palace was built in 794. It was designed to be a graceful and elegant royal home. But there's another building which is even more breathtaking. It is called the Golden Pavilion. First built in 1397, this impressive structure sits in the middle of a gorgeous lake, surrounded by well-maintained gardens. Believe it or not, the pavilion is actually adorned with real gold.
Hey there, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a journey to a really fascinating place, Kyoto, Japan. Rich history, incredible beauty.
Yeah, and this one's a bit special, actually, because the material, the story we're using, it came directly from you, our listener. You sent us this wonderful description of a trip to Kyoto and also some English grammar resources.
That's right, focusing on things like past simple, present simple.
And the passive voice. Key stuff.
Absolutely. So our mission today is kind of cool. We're using your Kyoto story as our guide. It's a way to explore these grammar points, not just as rules in a book, but, how they actually work to tell a story about a real place.
Exactly. Seeing grammar in action in a real text you provided makes it click, doesn't it? It helps you understand why we choose certain structures. Way more memorable than just staring at tables.
For sure. So let's jump right into your Kyoto story. We'll unpack the city and some fundamental English grammar along the way. Okay, first things first. Let me read that opening paragraph you wrote. A few years ago, my family went on a trip to Japan. We visited the big cities of Tokyo and Yokohama. We also visited a very old and charming city called Kyoto. In Japanese, Kyoto means capital city. In fact, Kyoto used to be the capital of Japan for hundreds of years before Tokyo took its place. Thankfully, Kyoto's historical treasures weren't destroyed in World War II like most were in Tokyo. Okay, so thinking about the story here, when did this trip happen?
Well, right there in the first line. Few years ago.
Simple enough. And which cities did the family visit?
It lists 3. Tokyo, Yokohama, and of course, Kyoto.
Great. Now let's look at the verbs used to describe those visits. My family went, we visited, we also visited.
Yeah.
These are all telling us about things that happened and finished. Back then, right?
Exactly. That's the past simple tense. It's for actions or states that were completed in the past. We know they started and finished before now, like the trip itself a few years ago.
So went. That's the past to go. Why isn't it good?
Good question. Go is what we call an irregular verb. Lots of common verbs in English have special past forms. You have to learn them. Go becomes went.
Okay, irregular.
Yeah.
But visited, that looks more straightforward.
It is. Visit is a regular verb. For most regular verbs, you just add ed to the base form to make the past simple. Like visit, visited, walked, played. Nice and simple.
Right, so past simple, finished past actions. Add ed mostly, but watch out for those irregulars like went. Got it.
Now, there's another interesting bit in that paragraph about Kyoto's history. Kyoto used to be the capital of Japan. What does that used to be tell us?
Used to be? It sounds like something that was true for a long time in the past, but isn't true now. So Kyoto was the capital, but not anymore.
Exactly right. Used to is perfect for talking about past habits or states that have ended. It emphasizes that change.
And after Kyoto stopped being the capital, what does the story say happened?
It says Tokyo took its place.
Tokyo took its place. Okay, another finished action in the past. Took.
Yeah.
That's the passive take, right? Another one of those irregulars.
Yep, another irregular take, took. So Tokyo completed the action of becoming the capital at some point back then. It all fits this pattern of finished past events in the first section. But then let's look at that last sentence of the first paragraph. It shifts things slightly. Thankfully, Kyoto's historical treasures weren't destroyed in World War II like most were in Tokyo.
Ah, yeah, this is interesting. The treasures weren't destroyed. But wait, who didn't destroy them? The sentence doesn't actually say, why write it like that? Why leave out who or what didn't do the destroying?
Good observation. That's because this sentence uses the passive voice. We often use the passive when the action itself, or maybe the result, is the most important thing. More important than who did it, or maybe we don't know who did it, or it's just not necessary to say.
So here, the focus is just on the treasures surviving.
Exactly. The important point is their fate, that they weren't destroyed. Who preserved them or failed to destroy them isn't the focus of this sentence.
Okay, how does the passive work then? Your grammar notes explain the structure.
The basic recipe is the verb to be in the right tense, plus the past participle of the main verb, the third form of the verb, like go, went, gone, take, took, taken, that last one.
Gotcha. So in treasures weren't destroyed, is the past of to be, plural for treasures, and negative.
Right, past simple of to be.
And destroyed is the past participle of destroy. And destroy is regular, so it just ends in ed, like simple past form.
Perfect. And notice the subject, Kyoto's historical treasures. They aren't doing the destroying, they are receiving the action, or in this case, the lack of action. They're the passive subject.
Could you say it differently? Like in the active voice?
Sure, you could. You might say something like, thankfully Allied bombing didn't destroy Kyoto's treasures. Or maybe
their preservation efforts protected Kyoto's treasures? Something like that.
Exactly. But notice how that changes the sentence's main character, right? Suddenly the subject is bombing or preservation efforts. By using the passive, treasures weren't destroyed, the story keeps the treasures right there as the subject, the focus. It's a choice about emphasis.
That makes a lot of sense. You want to keep the spotlight on the treasures. Okay. The story later mentions the imperial palace. Let's look at that sentence. The old imperial palace was built in 794.
Ah, yes, another great example. Past simple passive again. Subject. The old imperial palace, verb, was built. Was is the past simple of to be singular this time for palace. And built is the past participle of built. Build, built, built. Irregular.
And again, the focus is on the palace and when it was built, not who exactly swung the hammers.
Precisely. Same for the next sentence. It was designed to be a graceful and elegant royal home. It refers to the palace. Verb was design. Was plus the past participle of design. Design is regular.
Okay, so we've got past simple for things done in the past, like went and visited.
Yeah.
And past simple passive for things that were done to something in the past, like was built, weren't destroyed, where the focus is on the thing receiving the action. Like different camera angles on the past.
Nicely put. Different lenses. Now let's shift gears. Let's look at how the story describes Kyoto today. Paragraph 2 starts painting that picture. Shinto and Buddhist shrines can be found throughout the city. They house thousands of priceless artifacts. Kyoto's beautiful. The city is full of charming neighborhoods and exceptional gardens.
The homes that line Kyoto's winding streets are made of paper and wood. Most houses are small. A tatami is a straw-woven floor mat. Beds are simple futons.
Even though they are sparsely furnished, Kyoto's homes are very comfortable. They often open up to a private garden where you can visit and relax.
Wow, yeah, that really gives you a feel for the place now. So, based on this, what can you find all over the city today?
It says Shinto and Buddhist shrines can be found throughout the city.
And the homes, what are they typically made of now?
The homes are made of paper and wood.
And what exactly is a tatami?
The text defines it. A tatami is a straw-woven floor mat. Okay, notice the verbs here. Can be found, house is beautiful, is full, are made, are small, are comfortable, open up. What do these verbs have in common? They're describing things now.
Right. Facts, general truths, how things are, things that happen regularly.
Exactly. This is the present simple tense.
We use it for things that are generally true, like facts about Kyoto or descriptions that are current or things that happen repeatedly, like the sun rises in the east. Always true.
Perfect example. So, Kyoto is beautiful. uses the present simple of to be. Same for city is full, houses are small, homes are comfortable. Notice is for singular things like Kyoto, city, the tatami, and are for plural things like shrines, houses, homes, beds.
And what about they house thousands of artifacts, or they often open up? These describe actions.
Yes, general actions or states. What the shrines generally do, house artifacts, or what the homes often do, open up to gardens.
Why no is on house or open up? I thought present simple sometimes added an S.
Ah, good catch. That S or S ending is only for the third person singular. That means he, she, it, or a singular noun like Kyoto or the house. Here the subject is they, plural for shrines or homes, so no S. Your grammar resources showed that rule, right?
Right. So he houses, she opens up, it sits.
Yep.
But they house, they open up. Makes sense.
And look, this paragraph also mixes in the passive voice, but this time in the present simple. Shrines can be found, and homes are made of paper and wood.
Whoa, okay. Bringing it all together. Can be found. That can plus be plus the past participle found. It's passive because the shrines aren't finding anything, they are found. And it's present because it's a fact now.
Precisely. It's a general truth about Kyoto today.
Yeah.
And are made.
That's are the present simple of to be plus made, the past participle of make. Again, passive because the homes aren't making anything, they are made of these materials. And it's present because it describes them now.
Exactly. Just like the past simple passive focused on past actions done to something, the present simple passive often describes a present state or fact resulting from an action done to the subject. The homes are currently in a state of being made of paper and wood. The shrines can be found, that's their current status.
Could you say, people make the homes of paper and wood? Active voice.
You could, absolutely, grammatically fine. But again, think about the focus. People make puts the spotlight on the beginners. Homes are made. Keeps the spotlight firmly on the homes themselves, describing their characteristics. Which fits better when you're painting a picture of the city, you know? It's about what you, the visitor, would see.
Yeah, that choice of focus really matters. Okay, let's look at the third paragraph. It talks architecture. The architecture and design of Kyoto's older buildings are amazing. The old imperial palace was built in 794. It was designed to be a graceful and elegant royal home. But there's another building which is even more breathtaking. It is called the Golden Pavilion. First built in 1397, this impressive structure sits in the middle of a gorgeous lake surrounded by well-maintained gardens. Believe it or not, the pavilion is actually adorned with real gold.
This paragraph is a perfect example of weaving everything together, past, present, active, passive, to give a really rich description.
Okay, so what are the two main buildings talked about here?
The Imperial Palace and the Golden Pavilion.
And the Imperial Palace, when was it built?
It's in 794.
Right, we saw that one. Was built. Past simple passive. Why passive again?
Focus on the palace, the historical fact, the date, not the builders.
Okay. Now, the Golden Pavilion, what is it called now?
The story says it is called the Golden Pavilion.
Is called, hang on, is present simple to be. Called is the past participle. So that's present simple passive. Why use that?
Because that's its name today. It's a current fact about the building. You could say people call it active, but it is called. Makes the name seem like part of the building's identity.
Got it. The story also mentions its history. First built in 1397. What's its structure? Just first built.
Ah, that's a neat little trick. It's a shortened passive phrase. It implies it was first built in 1397, or which was first built. It uses the past participle, built, to link that past action directly to the pavilion, giving historical background right before describing it now.
Clever. Connects past to present. And describing it now, this impressive structure sits, is surrounded, and is actually adorned.
Right. Sits is present simple active. Sits with an S because the subject structure is singular, like it. That's where it is now, a current fact.
And is surrounded and is adorned. More present simple passive.
You got it. Is plus the past participle, surrounded, adorned. Just like are made earlier, these describe the pavilion's current state or appearance. It is surrounded. It is adorned. That's what you see today.
And again, you could say garden surrounded or someone adorned it, but the passive keeps the focus on the pavilion and its amazing features.
Exactly. It highlights the building itself, which makes sense when you're describing its breathtaking nature. This paragraph really shows how you mix and match these tools.
Okay, wow. So let's quickly recap the grammar we've dug into using your Kyoto story.
Sure. We saw the past simple for completed actions in the past, the trip, the visits, Tokyo taking over. Remember the regular ed ending and those tricky irregulars like went and took?
Then we looked at the present simple. For facts, descriptions, things true now, like Kyoto is beautiful, houses are made of wood, the pavilion sits by a lake, and don't forget that ix for he, she, it.
And we spent a good chunk of time on the passive voice. That's when the action or the result is more important than who did it, formed with to be plus the past participle.
Yeah, and we saw in a past simple talking about history was built, weren't destroyed.
Right.
And in the present simple talking about now is called, are made, is adorned.
And the key takeaway, using your story really shows this, is that choosing between active and passive, or past and present, isn't just about rules. It's about deciding what you want to emphasize. What's the main focus? The person doing the action, or the thing receiving it.
This was fantastic. A really deep dive into Kyoto's charm and how English grammar helps bring it to life. Thanks so much for sharing the story and resources.
Absolutely. And it just shows reading texts like this, asking questions, not just what does it mean, but why is it written this way? That's a great way to get a feel for grammar in context.
So as you think about the past events in Kyoto told with past simple, and the present beauty with present simple, and how the passive voice kept our focus on the treasures and buildings.
Maybe consider this. We saw the Golden Pavilion was built in 1397. Passive, you could say. Someone built the Golden Pavilion in 1397. Active. How does that tiny change shift where your mind goes? One focuses on the building, the other on the builders. When you're telling a story about a place, which focus usually feels more natural?
That choice, that focus, is where grammar stops being just rules and becomes a real tool for communication. Keep reading, keep exploring, keep asking those why questions about the English you see. Until next time on The Deep Dive. Welcome to The Deep Dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We're not just diving into a place or concept, but really digging into the building blocks of language used to describe one. We've got a fascinating stack of sources for this deep dive, some material breaking down core English grammar points, paired with a lovely story about a trip to Kyoto, Japan.
That's right. So we have the explanations of how certain grammar works, and then we get to see it, in action, painting a picture of this beautiful city.
Our mission today is to connect the dots between the grammar rules our sources explain and the specific sentences in the Kyoto story. We'll unpack things like past tense actions, the difference between active and passive sentences, using modals passively, and that useful phrase used to. We'll explore how they function, but maybe more importantly, what meaning and emphasis they add.
Exactly. It's about seeing how the writer's choices shape your understanding and, well, your feeling about Kyoto. By looking closely at these structures, you'll not only grasp this story better, but also see these elements at play in everything you read.
Okay, let's dive in. Starting with a fundamental distinction that really shapes where you focus attention. Active versus passive voice.
Right. Our source material lays out the difference pretty clearly between these two grammatical voices. So in the active voice, the subject of the sentence is the one doing the action, performing it.
The actor.
The actor, yes. Think of the classic structure. Subject performs, verb on object. Our source gives examples like, his parents love him. The parents are the subject, they actively do the loving. Or, I did my homework yesterday. I is the subject, actively doing the homework. The energy flows from the subject.
So the emphasis is squarely on the actor, the one making things happen. Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the passive voice kind of flips that around. The subject of the sentence isn't the doer. They are the one receiving the action. The focus shifts.
So what's being acted upon?
Precisely. The passive voice uses a form of the verb to be, like is, was, are, or followed by the main verb's past participle. That's often the form ending in ed for regular verbs like walked or finished, or sometimes those irregular forms like done or written, the ones.
The V3 form.
The V3, yeah, the structure it looks like. Subject, the receiver, plus form of to be plus past participle. You can optionally add by plus the actor if you want to mention who did it, but often you don't need to.
Okay.
Using our earlier examples passively, he is loved by his parents. He is now the subject, but he's receiving the love. Or, my homework was done by me yesterday. My homework is the subject, receiving the action of being done. See how the focus shifts.
Yeah, absolutely. So if active voice puts the spotlight on the doer, this is where it gets really interesting. Why would a writer choose passive? What does that shift in focus actually do?
Good question. And that's where the source gives us some key insights into why this structure is used. One big reason is when the person or thing doing the action is, well, unknown or maybe unimportant or just plain obvious from the context.
Right.
Like if I say I was robbed 3 weeks ago, I probably don't know who did it, or maybe it doesn't matter for the main point what happened to me. Our source also uses the tea is grown in India. Who exactly grows the tea isn't really important for this general statement about where it comes from.
Makes sense.
Another common use is when the action itself is more important than who performed it. You see this a lot in, say, news reporting, scientific descriptions, or instructions.
Okay.
A headline might scream, 80-year-old man was robbed, focusing on the victim and the event, not the nameless criminal, or describing a process. The milk is put into the container. The steps are key, not the person doing them.
Right. The focus is on the process.
It can also be used, sort of subtly, to describe something unfavorable without directly pointing fingers. If you say, the window was broken, it sounds a bit less accusatory than someone broke the window.
Interesting nuance.
And our source mentions its use in impersonal reports or beliefs, often with verbs like think, believe, say. You might hear, it is believed that John crashed the car, which feels maybe more formal or detached than saying, people believe John crashed the car.
Okay, looking at the Kyoto story, we can see this playing out. The trip itself is described actively. My family went on a trip. We visited. That makes sense. And we see active verbs describing what things do, like temples house thousands of artifacts.
Right, the subject is doing the action.
But then, right away, we hit passive. Kyoto's historical treasures weren't destroyed in World War II. Now, think about that. If it were active, it might be something like, the Allies didn't destroy Kyoto's treasures, but phrasing it passively.
It puts the treasures themselves front and center.
Exactly. It highlights their survival, which is a pretty remarkable fact about Kyoto.
Absolutely. The passive voice emphasizes the state of the treasures, the fact that they endured. Similarly, when describing the old imperial palace. The old imperial palace was built in 794.
The focus is on the palace.
Yes, on the palace and its long history, the fact of its construction, the ancient builders. Well, their names are likely unknown or just not important in this context. It grounds the description in the object itself, the palace.
Speaking of past events.
The past simple tense, yes. The story uses that frequently. Our source defines it as being for actions that started and, crucially, finished completely in the past.
Okay.
For most regular verbs, you just add that ed ending to the base form. Worked, lived, visited, simple enough. But English has those wonderful irregular verbs where you use the second form in the list. Went from go, took from take, was were from be.
Well, ones you just have to learn.
Pretty much. The form is generally the same, regardless of the subject. I visited, they visited, she visited. It's always that past form. The only common exception is the verb to be, which has was for singular subjects like I, he, she, it, and were for plural subjects like we, you, they.
So past simple for completed actions. How do you turn those past actions into questions or negatives? Like if you didn't do something.
Question. For most verbs, you bring in the helper verb, the auxiliary did. To make it negative, it's subject plus did not, or often didn't, plus the base form of the main verb. You drop the ed or the irregular past form.
Back to the base form.
Yes. And for a question, you put did right at the very beginning, then the subject, and then again the base form of the main verb. So let's take she worked abroad. The negative is she did not work abroad, or she didn't work.
Didn't work.
And the question, did she work abroad? See, work goes back to the base form. If it was an irregular verb like wrote, Harry wrote books, becomes Harry did not write letters, and did Harry write letters?
Got it. What about to be? You said that was different.
It's simpler. You just add not after was or were for negatives.
Yeah.
She was not angry or she wasn't angry. We were not young. We weren't young. And for questions, just move was or were to the front. Was she angry? Were we young? No need needed.
Okay, so completed actions in the past. When exactly do we pull out the past simple? Our sources give a few key scenarios, right?
They do. It's primarily for actions that happened at a specific finished time in the past. The time might be stated explicitly, like, she worked abroad 2 years ago, or maybe it's just understood from the context. I met my friend yesterday.
Okay, a defined past moment.
Right. It's also used for past actions or states that have no connection or result in the present. If the source says he was a famous singer, the implication is usually
That he isn't now.
Exactly. Or she worked abroad for 20 years. Using the past simple typically suggests she doesn't work there anymore. It's finished. And importantly for storytelling, like in the Kyoto piece, it's used to list actions that happen one after another, in sequence.
Like a chain of events.
Precisely. She entered the room and screamed. One action, then the next. Or I woke up, washed my face, and brushed my teeth. A clear sequence. This is different from, say, the past continuous, which would describe things happening at the same time.
Right.
And you often see past simple with specific time markers. Yesterday, last week, last month, last year, something ago, in 1992, or at 6 o'clock, if that time is clearly in the past.
And looking at the Kyoto story, yeah, the past simple is absolutely everywhere, doing exactly this job. My family went, we visited, Tokyo took its place.
Yeah.
These describe the specific events of the trip and historical changes as completed actions.
Yep. Clear past moments.
And then things like Kyoto's treasures weren't destroyed, the palace was built, it was designed. These use the past simple, but passively, right? To describe completed historical facts, focusing on the receiver.
That's a great observation. Yes, past simple passive. It really paints a picture of finished moments and distinct historical eras, focusing on what happened to those things.
Okay, let's circle back to that passive voice again, but look at it in the present. The present, simple passive.
Right. So same passive idea subject receives the action, but using the present tense. Our source shows this is formed using the present tense of to be, that's ham, is, or are, plus that past participle again, the V3 form.
Okay.
So the structure is subject receiver plus emissar plus past participle. So if the active present is Tom brings the package, the passive present is the package is brought. The package is receiving the action now or regularly.
And negatives and questions, similar to the past passive to be.
Exactly the same logic. Negative subject plus emissar plus not plus past participle. The package is not brought. Questions start with emissar plus subject plus past participle. Is the package brought?
So this tense, present simple passive, is used for general truths, facts, or actions that happen regularly now, but where the focus is on the thing the action happens to.
Precisely. You're applying those reasons for using passive voice actor, unknown, unimportant, action more important but for things happening currently, or general states. Like our source example, the tea is grown in India. That's a general fact about tea production, focusing on the tea and its origin. True right now.
And the Kyoto story uses this beautifully to describe what Kyoto is like today, its current characteristics. Like, the homes that line Kyoto's winding streets are made of paper and wood. The houses are making themselves.
Right. They are receiving the action of being made. The focus is on their materials, their appearance.
Exactly. And just one room is covered with tatami. The room receives the covering. Beds are simple futons placed on the floor. The futons receive the placing.
Good examples.
And these descriptions, like Kyoto's homes are sparsely furnished, are very comfortable. It is called the Golden Pavilion. The pavilion is actually adorned with real gold. They all describe the current state or general characteristics of things in Kyoto using that passive structure. The writer wants you to see the homes, the rooms, the pavilion, and focus on what's true about them right now.
Yes, it gives a direct sense of the city's appearance and feel, rather than focusing on who does the furnishing or the calling or the adorning. It emphasizes the what's over the who.
Okay, connecting to that idea of current states but adding another layer, let's talk about modal verbs with the passive.
Ah, yes. Modals like can, could, will, should, must. They add these extra meanings, right? Possibility, ability, obligation, future intent.
So how do they combine with the passive voice?
Our sources show they fit right into the passive structure. The pattern is modal verb plus be plus past participle, V3. You always use the base form be after the modal, never is or are or am. Then the V3. Ah, okay. So the modal gives its meaning like possibility with can, but the be plus V3 part keeps it passive, focusing on the subject receiving the action.
Exactly right. And the Kyoto story gives us a perfect example of this. Shinto and Buddhist shrines can be found throughout the city.
Right.
Kanji signals possibility or ability. It's possible to find them. You're able to find them. Be found is the passive part, the V3 of find.
So the shrines are receiving the possibility of being found.
Exactly. Shrines can be found means it's possible for these shrines to be located or to be discovered. The emphasis is on the shrines and their availability, their potential presence, not really on the generic people who might do the finding.
That's a great point. How does that subtle difference change the meaning compared to if the writer had just used the present simple passive we talked about, like shrines are found throughout the city?
That's a really useful comparison to make. Shrines are found just states it as a simple factual characteristic, a statement of location. It's true.
Okay, it's a fact. Yeah. But shrines can be found adds that layer of potentiality or maybe accessibility. It might suggest they're numerous. or that seeking them out is part of the Kyoto experience. It implies their presence is a noteworthy possibility rather than just a static fact.
It adds a little sense of discovery.
I think so, yeah. A sense of discovery or opportunity for the visitor. It's a subtle but meaningful difference. And other modals would work the same way in passive structures mentioned or implied in our sources. Think about the rule should be followed, obligation is placed on the rule.
Right.
Or the door must be locked. Necessity placed on the door. The modal's meaning applies to the action being received by the subject.
Okay, that makes sense. Now for one more specific structure that really speaks to change over time. Used to.
Used to.
Right.
Followed by the base form of a verb, the infinitive without to. Our sources clarify this one is specifically for talking about habits, states, or situations that were true or happened regularly in the past.
But crucially.
Crucially, they are no longer true or happening now. That's the key meaning it adds. The structure is pretty straightforward. Subject plus used to plus base form of verb. Our passive source gives an active example. Tom used to bring the package, meaning...
He brought it regularly in the past, but not anymore.
Exactly. It was his past habit, now finished.
And our Kyoto story uses this perfectly to highlight a major historical shift.
It does. It says, Kyoto used to be the capital of Japan for hundreds of years before Tokyo took its place.
That nails the meaning of used to, doesn't it? It wasn't just briefly the capital. It habitually or continuously held that status for a long time.
But now, definitively, it does not. Tokyo is the capital. The phrase used to be clearly signals that contrast between a past state and the present reality.
So it's more powerful than just saying Kyoto was the capital.
I'd say so, yes. Kyoto was the capital. Simply states a past fact. It could have been the capital last year or 1,000 years ago. But Kyoto used to be the capital carries that explicit weight of this is no longer the case. It emphasizes the change. Our source table on passive even shows a passive form. The package used to be brought by Tom, meaning that regular past action happening to the package is now over.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've really unpacked quite a bit just by looking closely at the grammar in this one Kyoto story. We've seen the past simple grounding events firmly in finished past time, active versus passive voice, shifting the focus, from who does the action to what receives it.
A really key distinction.
We saw present simple passive describing current states and general truths about Kyoto today. Modal passive adding nuances like possibility to those received actions.
Like the shrines can be found.
Exactly. And used to clearly signaling a past habit or state that is now definitely ended.
Right. And it's fascinating, isn't it, to see how these choices, which might seem like just dry grammar rules, are really tools the writer uses quite deliberately to shape the message. When the story uses passive to talk about the treasures not being destroyed, it puts their preservation first. That's the focus. When it uses used to be for Kyoto's capital status, it emphasizes the city's deep history, but also its significant transformation.
It really hammers home that grammar isn't just about being correct. It's a powerful toolkit for adding layers of meaning and influencing how you, the reader, perceive the information.
Absolutely. Understanding why these structures are chosen, like highlighting the recipient or emphasizing a change from the past, makes you a much more insightful reader, a more critical reader, really.
Every grammatical choice, from the tense you pick to whether you go active or passive, subtly guides your attention and shapes the narrative.
It really does.
So maybe next time you're reading something, anything really, perhaps pause for a second and notice the verbs. Is it active or passive? Past simple or something else? And ask yourself, why did the writer choose that specific structure? What effect does it have on how I'm understanding this?
Which, raises an important question to maybe leave you with. If these structures we've discussed have such power to subtly shape meaning, what other subtle grammatical cues might we be overlooking in the texts we read every day, the sources we rely on for information? How much nuance are we missing?
That's definitely something to ponder as you continue your own deep dives into new material. Thanks for joining us.